Professor Alistair Thorne, a man whose lectures commanded respect, stared at the new contract for his anonymous bestseller, The Ivory Tower. Another triumph, yet the familiar hollow ache settled in his chest. His secret literary success, ironically born from the very academic world he critiqued, offered no true solace. Seeking an antidote to the sterile perfection of his campus life, Thorne found himself drawn, as always, to the book nook. Here, amidst towering shelves overflowing with forgotten stories, the scent of old paper and dust was a comforting balm. Soft lamplight illuminated a chaos that felt more authentic than any curated university hall. He browsed aimlessly, a gentle peace settling over him as a tabby cat, Mr. Silas's constant companion, stretched languidly across a precarious stack of classics. Mr. Silas, an eccentric man with spectacles perpetually perched on his nose, offered a brief, knowing glance from behind the counter, a silent acknowledgment of Thorne's weekly pilgrimage into the unpredictable. In a dimly lit corner, tucked away between forgotten poetry and esoteric philosophy, a dog-eared copy of A History of Modern Art caught Thorne's eye. It was an older edition, well-loved, its spine cracked. He pulled it from the shelf, a whisper of curiosity guiding his hand. As he flipped through the pages, a faint, youthful script danced in the margins. Notes, questions, enthusiastic underlines. The handwriting, though faded with time, tugged at a distant memory, a flicker of recognition he couldn't quite place. It was vibrant, intelligent, undeniably familiar, and it stirred an uneasy sense of anticipation within him. He paused, his thumb brushing over a particularly passionate marginal note, when a brittle, discolored piece of paper fluttered from between the pages, landing softly on the worn wooden floor. It was an old university library card, brittle with age, its laminate peeling at the edges. Thorne's breath hitched. He picked it up, his fingers trembling slightly, and read the name printed across it. Beneath it, the unmistakable stamp of his own university. A visceral shock, cold and sharp, washed over him, seizing his lungs. Elara Vance. The name echoed in the cavern of his mind. A forgotten bell suddenly rung, signaling a past he had desperately tried to bury. The bustling bookstore faded into a dull roar. His vision tunneled, filled with ghosts from 2 decades ago. Elara Vance. A brilliant, ambitious student, her talent undeniable, her ideas often outshining his own. The memory of her bright, eager face in his seminars, the insightful questions, the raw, unpolished genius that had both fascinated and deeply unnerved him. Then, the specific, career-ruining incident. The paper he had unjustly failed. The cruel, dismissive feedback, fueled not by objective critique, but by a festering, unacknowledged jealousy of her burgeoning potential. He had justified it then, told himself it was for her own good, a lesson in humility. Now, a profound wave of regret and guilt, cold and crushing, crashed over him, leaving him breathless. Professor Alistair Thorne's elegant apartment, usually a sanctuary of quiet erudition, felt like a cage. The library card, brittle with age, lay accusingly on his polished mahogany coffee table, nestled within the worn pages of A History of Modern Art. He paced, his silk robe whispering against the silent floor, each step a futile attempt to outrun the memory. It was just a coincidence, he told himself, a random artifact in a second-hand shop. Millions of old university cards existed. Yet, the name Elara Vance burned into his mind, an indelible mark. The familiar scrawl in the book's margins, the same youthful, passionate hand he remembered, refused to be dismissed. A cold dread settled in his gut. This wasn't mere chance. This was a reckoning. The moonlight, usually a soothing presence, now seemed to highlight his unease, glinting off the card like a shard of forgotten truth. He picked up a half-empty glass of whiskey, but the warmth offered no solace against the chill of emerging guilt. The next morning, the hallowed halls of the university offered no escape. Thorne stood at the podium in a lecture hall, his voice, usually so resonant, feeling thin and distant. He spoke of the Impressionists, of light and shadow, but his mind was elsewhere, drifting through the fog of memory. He scanned the rows of eager young faces, seeing not just his current students, but a phantom of Elara Vance, sitting in a similar room, her eyes bright, with an unquenchable intellectual curiosity. He remembered her insightful questions, her fierce intelligence, and the way she would lean forward, utterly absorbed. The hypocrisy of his position, lecturing on artistic integrity while harboring such a profound personal failing, weighed on him. He saw an empty seat in the third row just where she would have sat, and it felt like a gaping wound, a silent accusation in the bustling room. Later, in the university staff lounge, the clinking of coffee cups and rustle of academic papers provided a thin veil for Thorne's turmoil. Dr. Evelyn Reed, a colleague whose keen intellect was matched only by her quiet empathy, observed him. "Alistair," she began, her voice gentle, "you seem 1,000 miles away. Is everything all right?" He started, offering a weak smile. "Just grappling with a rather persistent ghost, Evelyn." He paused, testing the waters. "A past student, a lingering regret. You know how these things can haunt a professor, the choices we make, the paths we inadvertently steer others onto." Evelyn nodded slowly, her gaze thoughtful. "Indeed. Sometimes, the most profound lessons we learn aren't from the books we teach, but from the lives we touch. And sometimes, rectifying a past choice, no matter how old, is the only way to truly move forward." Her words, though innocently spoken, resonated with an unsettling precision. Back in his office that afternoon, the subtle encouragement from Evelyn, coupled with the relentless thrum of guilt, propelled Thorne into action. He accessed the university's archaic student record system, the digital interface, a stark contrast to the dusty files he imagined from his youth. Typing Elara Vance into the search bar felt like crossing a threshold. The screen flickered, revealing an outdated address, a disconnected phone number. A wave of apprehension washed over him. This wouldn't be simple. He scrolled through the sparse information, a mix of hope that she might still be found, and dread about what he might uncover. What if she was completely untraceable? What if he couldn't fix what he'd broken? His initial fear of exposure battled fiercely with a growing, undeniable compulsion to find answers, to understand the trajectory of the life he had so carelessly altered. He found himself later on a quiet park bench near the university, autumn leaves falling around him like hushed confessions. The library card, a small, unassuming rectangle of plastic, felt like a heavy stone in his pocket. He pulled it out, tracing the raised letters of Elara's name. He reflected on the weight of his actions, the casual cruelty of his jealousy, and the potential impact it had wrought on a young, brilliant life. Merely acknowledging his guilt, he realized, was a hollow gesture. It wasn't enough to feel remorse. He needed to act. He needed to find her, to look into her eyes, and somehow, to atone. The card, once a symbol of his past transgression, now felt like a beacon, or perhaps a compass, guiding him toward an uncertain, yet inevitable future. His peace, he knew, depended on it. Professor Alistair Thorne's home office, a fortress of leather-bound volumes and hushed ambition, felt different tonight. The soft glow of his desk lamp illuminated a single, brittle library card, stark against the polished mahogany. His hand trembled slightly as he dialed, a tremor he hadn't felt since his student days. "Mr. Finch," he began, his voice a low, precise murmur. "I require your services. Utmost discretion, I assure you. This is a matter of profound personal sensitivity." He detailed the scant information he possessed about Elara Vance, the year, the university, the faint hope of an old address. He stressed the need for invisibility, a ghost in the shadows, unearthing a past he dared not disturb publicly. His desire for answers warred with a primal fear of exposure, a tightrope walk between redemption and ruin. The next day, Thorne found himself in his university office, surrounded by dusty student files, a ritual he usually performed with detached efficiency. But today his fingers paused on a file marked, "Vance, Elara." He pulled it, the familiar name a jolt to his system. He thumbed through her old assignments, each one a testament to a mind he had once secretly envied. Her innovative ideas, her sharp, insightful analyses, they leapt from the pages, vibrant and alive. And then, there it was, the specific paper, a brilliant critique of postmodern art, marred by his own harsh red F. The memory of his jealousy, a cold, insidious burn, ignited afresh. How could he have been so blind, so petty? The talent he had stifled now mocked him from the yellowed pages. Back in the quiet solitude of his living room, the worn copy of A History of Modern Art lay open on Thorne's lap. He traced the youthful, familiar handwriting in the margins, each elegant scrawl a whispered thought from Elara. Asterisk. Is art meant to provoke or merely reflect? Asterisk one-note read, followed by a fierce, underlined asterisk both. He imagined her, a young woman brimming with dreams, hunched over this very book, her mind alight with questions and passions. Her insights were profound, her observations keen, far beyond what he had given her credit for in his jealous haze. The marginalia wasn't just notes, it was a silent accusation, a testament to the vibrant spirit he had tried to extinguish. A deep, aching sadness settled in his chest. Late that night, the city lights blurred beyond his office window as Thorne gripped his phone, his knuckles white. Mr. Finch's voice was clipped, professional, delivering fragments of a life. Elara Vance. Struggled after university. Tried to make a go of it as an artist, but difficult. Moved out of state for a few years, then returned. Appears to be working at a local community art center now. A flicker of hope ignited within Thorne. She was reachable, not entirely lost. But it was quickly overshadowed by a dread, a cold fear of the hardship those clipped words implied. Struggled. A single word, echoing the vast, unknown suffering he had unknowingly inflicted. The distance between his world and hers felt immense, terrifying. Thorne's study, a sanctuary usually filled with the quiet triumph of his anonymous novels, now felt like a gilded cage. He stared at the rows of his acclaimed works, the ivory tower, prominent among them, and they felt hollow, insubstantial. The real drama, the profound narrative, wasn't bound in these pages. It was unfolding in the life of Elara Vance, a life he had fractured. Finding her wasn't just about making amends. It was about reclaiming a lost piece of his own humanity, an unwritten chapter demanding resolution. His resolve hardened, a steel thread replacing the earlier apprehension. Whatever Mr. Finch uncovered next, he would face it. His peace, his very soul, depended on it. The thick manila file lay accusingly on Professor Alistair Thorne's polished mahogany desk. Early morning light, usually a comforting presence, now felt harsh, illuminating the stark details of Mr. Finch's report. Thorne's fingers, typically steady, trembled as he turned the pages. Elara Vance. Her name, once a symbol of his professional envy, was now a ledger of suffering he had indirectly caused. The words blurred. Struggled significantly post-university, failed attempts at an art career, succession of low-paying service jobs, brief period of documented homelessness. Each phrase was a hammer blow, shattering his carefully constructed justifications. He saw a faded, grainy photograph of a younger Elara, not in a cap and gown, but serving coffee, her eyes weary. The crushing weight of lost opportunity pressed down on him. Yet, amidst the despair, one detail flickered. Currently employed at the Willow Creek Community Art Center, teaching children. A fragile thread of hope in a tapestry of regret. Later that day, Thorne sat in his discreetly parked car across from the Willow Creek Community Art Center. The building was modest, vibrant murals splashed across its brick facade. Through a large window he saw her. Elara Vance, older now, her hair tied back, a paint-splattered apron over simple clothes. She was surrounded by a cluster of laughing children, guiding a small hand with a paintbrush. Her movements were gentle, her smile genuine, her passion undeniable. The bright spark he'd seen in her youth, the one he'd tried to extinguish, still burned. It was refined by hardship, perhaps, but impossibly present. A deep ache settled in Thorne's chest, a responsibility so heavy it threatened to buckle him. He, Alistair Thorne, had robbed this woman of a life she was clearly meant to live. The internal voice, sharp and cynical like Julian Vance, whispered, "Is this truly remorse, or just morbid curiosity?" That evening, Thorne's luxurious home felt less like a sanctuary and more like a gilded cage. He wandered through vast, empty rooms, past expensive art and designer furniture. Each object, a testament to his comfortable, unearned success, seemed to mock him. His path had been smooth, paved with accolades and privilege, while Elara's had been a relentless uphill climb. The contrast was suffocating. He thought of her in the diner uniform, the homelessness, the struggle. And then he thought of himself, safe within these opulent walls, contemplating how to anonymously assuage his guilt, What if his secret came out? His reputation, his career, his carefully cultivated image, all would crumble. The fear was cold, real, but it warred with a deeper, more profound shame. His success, he realized, had come at Elara's expense, and that made it hollow. The next afternoon, Alistair Thorne, posing as a curious local, stepped into the small gallery space attached to the art center. Student works, vibrant and earnest, lined the walls. He moved slowly, his eyes scanning, until they landed on a piece tucked away in a corner. It was a small canvas, but its impact was immense. A cityscape rendered in stark, emotional strokes, bathed in a melancholic twilight. There was an honesty, a raw vulnerability that transcended the medium. A small, unassuming tag read, "Elara Vance." His breath caught. Her artistic voice, far from being silenced, had matured, deepened, found new resonance through hardship. He imagined her painting this, pouring her soul onto the canvas. A wave of awe, mixed with renewed guilt, washed over him. Her talent must be seen, must be recognized. It was a debt he had to pay. Back in his university office, surrounded by the quiet hum of his laptop and stacks of academic journals, Thorne began to research. Grants for emerging artists, community arts, fellowships, mentorship programs. He considered every avenue, his fingers flying across the keyboard. Could he fund her anonymously? Establish a scholarship in her name? The ethical knots tightened around him. Was covert assistance true atonement, or simply a way to protect himself? The fear of exposure still lurked, a shadow at the periphery of his mind, but it was receding. The image of Elara, vibrant with paint, teaching those children, eclipsed it. He had a reputation to protect, yes, but he also had a soul to reclaim. The desire to help, to genuinely rectify the wrong, now outweighed all his carefully constructed self-preservation instincts. The dream was vivid, terrifying. Thorne stood at a packed lecture hall podium, a spotlight blinding him. He was delivering a keynote, his voice booming with academic authority. Then, a figure rose from the audience, Elara Vance. Younger, defiant, a harsh red F emblazoned on her chest like a scarlet letter. She pointed at him, and the crowd's murmuring turned to a roar of accusation. His words dissolved into meaningless noise. The spotlight intensified, searing him. He felt his academic robes unraveling, his carefully constructed reputation shattering. He woke with a gasp, drenched in a cold sweat, his heart hammering. The humiliation, the shattering of his world, felt terrifyingly real. The next morning, the lingering chill of the dream clung to Thorne. He sat at his desk, the old library card still a silent sentinel. "Is this truly about redemption, Alistair?" the cynical voice of his inner Julian whispered. "Or is it a self-serving quest for peace, one that could cost you everything?" He stared at a half-written letter of retreat, a cowardly escape from the precipice of confession. It would be so easy to abandon this path, to tell himself it was too risky, too late, that Elara was doing fine. But then his eyes fell on the faded university stamp on the card, a tangible link to the past he had tried to bury. His own university, his own mistake. The card challenged his retreat, a silent, unyielding demand for justice. In the bustling university cafeteria, the aroma of stale coffee and academic ambition hung heavy. Dr. Evelyn Reed, her gaze perceptive, noticed Thorne's distant air. "Alistair, you seem preoccupied," she observed gently. "I was just discussing a particularly thorny ethical case with a student. The cost of rectifying a past wrong, even when it's immense." Thorne looked up, her words resonating with an unsettling precision. "Indeed," he murmured, his voice tight. "Sometimes, the hardest choice is the only one that truly liberates." Evelyn smiled, a knowing, empathetic curve of her lips. She didn't know the specifics of his dilemma, but her quiet wisdom offered an unexpected anchor in his internal storm, reinforcing the path he knew, deep down, he had to take. Late that evening, alone in his apartment, Thorne picked up the half-written letter of retreat. His fingers, now steady, crumpled the paper, dropping it into the wastebasket with a decisive thud. No more evasions, no more half-measures. He would not offer anonymous grants or subtle mentorship. He would face her directly, honestly, accepting whatever consequences came. The fear hadn't vanished entirely, but it was eclipsed by a profound sense of resolve. A weight he hadn't realized he carried began to lift. He closed his eyes, breathing deeply. This was the harder path, yes, but it was the only one that led to genuine peace, to true redemption. The library card, now in his pocket, felt less like a burden and more like a compass. Just before dawn, the city outside Thorne's study window was a canvas of muted blues and grays. He sat at his computer, drafting an email to Elara Vance. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, each word a precarious step. He kept it brief, professional, yet earnest. "Dear Ms. Vance," he typed, "I recently came across your university library card, which prompted me to reflect on your time here. I would be grateful for an opportunity to speak with you about your past at the university." He agonized over the phrasing, wanting to convey sincerity without alarm, to open a door without forcing it. Finally, with a deep, shaky breath, he clicked send. The notification flashed. Message sent. A mix of trepidation and immense relief washed over him. The ball was now in her court. The morning light, filtered through the worn lace curtains, painted Elara Vance's small apartment in a kaleidoscope of soft hues. Every wall was an explosion of color, adorned with canvases in various stages of completion, abstract cityscapes, vibrant portraits, and whimsical nature scenes. The scent of linseed oil mingled with brewing coffee, a fragrant testament to a life rebuilt, bit by bit. Elara, her brow furrowed in concentration, meticulously applied a stroke of cerulean to a large canvas, her movements fluid and confident. Her fingers, stained with paint, danced across the surface, coaxing life from pigment. Despite the subtle lines of fatigue around her eyes, a quiet strength emanated from her, a resilience forged in fires she rarely spoke of. Her brother and closest friend Leo entered, balancing 2 steaming mugs. He was her rock, her unwavering support through years of struggle. "Coffee for the tortured artist," he announced, his voice a warm rumble. Elara smiled, a genuine, unburdened curve of her lips. Tortured, yes, but less so with caffeine. She took a grateful sip. The art center director loved the new pieces. "She thinks we might actually get that small gallery show next spring." Leo beamed, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "I knew it. Your talent, Elara, it's undeniable. Soon, everyone will see what I've always known." Her life was undeniably hard, a constant hustle, but here, amidst her art and Leo's unwavering belief, she found a profound, grounding peace. Later that morning, the vibrant peace of Elara's apartment was abruptly shattered. She was scrolling through emails, looking for updates from the art center, when her gaze snagged on a sender's name that sent a jolt of icy dread through her. Professor Alistair Thorne. Her heart, which had just moments ago beat with the rhythm of creation, plummeted into her stomach. It felt like a ghost had reached out from the past and tightened an invisible grip around her throat. She clicked, her finger trembling slightly. The message was brief, almost clinical. "Dear Ms. Vance," it began. "I recently came across an old university library card belonging to you, used as a bookmark in a used copy of A History of Modern Art. I would be grateful for the opportunity to speak with you regarding your time at the university." Vague, yet impossibly specific. The words blurred, but the implications were crystal clear. The unfair grade, the scathing dismissive feedback, the shattering of her academic dreams. It all rushed back, a torrent of painful memories she had painstakingly buried. The bitterness, a familiar, acrid taste, resurfaced on her tongue. Why now? After all these years, why would he suddenly resurface, wielding a relic of the very institution that had, in her mind, so carelessly discarded her? His motive felt sinister, his sudden interest a violation. A shadow seemed to fall across her face, eclipsing the light that had so recently filled her eyes. Elara's hands, still trembling, clutched her phone. Leo, sensing her sudden shift in demeanor, walked over. "What is it? You look like you've seen a phantom." She turned the screen towards him, her voice tight with a mixture of confusion and simmering anger. "It's Professor Thorne, from university. He sent this." Leo read the email, his protective instincts immediately flaring, his jaw tightened, and the warmth in his eyes hardened into a fierce glare. "Thorne? That arrogant windbag? What does he want?" Discuss your university past. The nerve! He ruined your university past! He paced the small space, his anger a tangible force. This is clearly some kind of trick, Elara. He probably wants something. Maybe he's writing a book and wants to mine your story for inspiration. Or worse, trying to preemptively silence you if he thinks you might speak out about what he did. Leo stopped, planting himself firmly in front of her. Don't even think about it. Don't respond. He doesn't deserve your time, not after what he put you through. If he tries anything, I'll go down there myself and give him a piece of my mind. Elara listened, her heart a battleground of conflicting emotions. Part of her agreed with Leo. Distrust was a logical, necessary shield. Yet, an unsettling curiosity gnawed at her, a desperate need to understand the unexpected reemergence of a man who had left such a profound, painful mark on her life. The rest of the day, Elara found herself unable to focus. She retreated to her studio space at the Community Arts Center, a place usually brimming with creative energy, but the canvas before her remained stubbornly blank. Thorne's email was a persistent hum in her thoughts, a discordant note in her carefully composed life. The anger was still there, a hot ember in her chest fueled by the memory of shattered dreams and the injustice she had endured. She remembered the crushing weight of that failing grade, the dismissal that had felt like a personal attack on her very soul, forcing her to abandon a path she had loved. But beneath the anger, a deep-seated curiosity pulsed. Why now? What could Professor Alistair Thorne, the celebrated academic and secret novelist, possibly want from the student he had so casually cast aside? Was it a genuine attempt at apology, or something more insidious, a new form of manipulation? She debated the risks. Confronting him could reopen wounds that had only just begun to scab over, inviting a fresh wave of pain. Yet, the thought of forever wondering, of leaving this unresolved chapter of her life unaddressed, was equally unbearable. The need for closure, for answers, for the chance to finally articulate the depth of his impact, was an irresistible pull, a siren song echoing from her past. Her phone lay beside her, a silent, tempting portal to a truth she both craved and feared. As dusk settled over the city, casting long shadows across her apartment, Elara finally made her decision. She opened her laptop, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. Leo's warnings echoed in her mind, a symphony of caution, but the insistent drumbeat of her own unresolved past pushed her forward. She would meet him, but on her terms. Her reply was terse, carefully worded, a shield against vulnerability. "Professor Thorne," she typed, each word a deliberate choice. "I received your email. I am available to meet briefly, but only in a public place. The Book Nook coffee shop, tomorrow at 10 a.m., would be suitable. Please understand, I have no desire to revisit painful memories, but I am curious about your intentions. This meeting will be brief." She reread it, ensuring it conveyed her guardedness, her refusal to be easily swayed. A surge of nervous energy coursed through her veins. This meeting could be painful, a rehashing of old hurts, or perhaps, just perhaps, it could be liberating, a chance to finally lay a ghost to rest. She hit send, a deep, shuddering breath escaping her lips. The city lights outside her window twinkled, indifferent to the dramatic confrontation she had just set in motion. The stage was set, and Elara, though fearful, was ready for battle. The aroma of roasted coffee beans and warm pastries hung heavy in the air of the Daily Grind, a popular, unpretentious coffee shop bustling with the mid-morning rush. Professor Alistair Thorne sat at a small, slightly wobbly table in a corner, far from the windows, a half-empty mug of black coffee growing cold before him. His hands, usually so steady when grading papers or signing book contracts, trembled slightly as he clutched the brittle, faded university library card. It felt like a ticking bomb, a tangible piece of his buried past. He had arrived a full 20 minutes early, the knot of anxiety in his stomach tightening with every passing minute. He adjusted his spectacles, then loosened his tie, then adjusted his spectacles again. Every new face entering the cafe sent a jolt of nervous energy through him. He saw her then. Elara Vance. She moved with a quiet grace, her eyes, though older, still holding that same intense, perceptive spark he remembered. She scanned the room, and her gaze, sharp and unwavering, found him instantly. There was no warmth, no recognition of a former mentor, only a guarded, almost wary assessment. She walked towards him, a slender figure in a worn but stylish denim jacket, and a palpable tension settled between them even before she reached the table. The clatter of cups, the murmur of conversations, all seemed to fade into a dull roar as she pulled out the chair opposite him. Elara did not offer a handshake. She simply sat, her eyes, the color of deep river stone, fixed on Thorne with an unnerving intensity. He felt a sudden, profound vulnerability, as if every carefully constructed facade of his academic life had crumbled under her gaze. "Professor Thorne," she said, her voice low, devoid of inflection. It was not a greeting, but an acknowledgement, a statement of fact that hung in the air like an accusation. Thorne cleared his throat, the words catching. "Elara," he managed, his voice hoarse. He slid the old library card across the table. "I found this in a used copy of A History of Modern Art at the Book Nook." He watched her carefully, but her expression remained unreadable. A wall between them. I didn't reach out to you about the card, Elara." He took a shaky breath, the truth a bitter taste on his tongue. "I reached out because of what it represents. What lies represent. What I did." He looked down at his hands, unable to meet her gaze. "I gave you an F on your final thesis, a grade you didn't deserve. I allowed my own insecurities, my own jealousy of your extraordinary talent, to overshadow my judgment. I ruined your academic career, Elara. I know I did." The confession, raw and unvarnished, hung between them, heavy and suffocating. Elara remained silent, her eyes narrowed, a single eyebrow raised in skeptical disbelief. For a long moment, Elara simply stared at him, her silence more damning than any accusation. Then, a tremor ran through her, and the carefully constructed wall around her emotions began to crack. "Jealousy?" she finally spat, the word laced with a bitterness that had simmered for years. "You ruined my life because of jealousy? Do you have any idea what that F did to me, Professor?" Her voice, though still low, vibrated with a raw, unleashed fury that turned heads at nearby tables. "I lost my scholarship. I couldn't get into any graduate programs. Every door I tried to open slammed shut in my face. I spent years working dead-end jobs, scraping by, sleeping on friends' couches, sometimes worse. All because some petty, arrogant man couldn't stand the idea that a student might actually be better than him." Tears welled in her eyes, hot and angry, streaming down her face, but she made no move to wipe them away. "And now, after all these years, you decide to confess? What do you want, Professor? Absolution? To clear your conscience? Do you have any idea the bitterness I carried, the quiet rage that fueled me, just to survive? You talk about talent like it was some abstract concept, but it was my life you stole." Thorne sat motionless, his head bowed, accepting every word, every tear, as his rightful penance. He felt the full, crushing weight of her suffering, a pain far deeper and more enduring than he had ever imagined. The raw emotion in Elara's voice left the air thrumming. Thorne slowly lifted his head, his face pale, his eyes filled with a profound sorrow that mirrored her own. "You're right, Elara," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, yet clear and steady. "Every word you've said is true. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't expect it." He pushed a slim, leather-bound folder across the table towards her. "But I can try to make amends." Elara eyed the folder suspiciously, but didn't open it. "This isn't an attempt to buy my peace of mind, or to mitigate my guilt. It's a commitment." He gestured to the folder. "Inside, you'll find a proposal for a substantial, unrestricted grant to fund your art for the next 5 years. Enough to secure a studio, cover living expenses, allow you to create without the crushing weight of financial worry." His gaze was steady, earnest. "There are also introductions to several gallery owners, curators, and an offer for a visiting artist position at the university, should you ever wish to teach. My name, for once, will be used to support you, not to hinder you. And I have begun the process of formally retracting my original assessment of your thesis, advocating for its posthumous recognition. He paused, his voice thick with emotion. I can't undo the past, Elara, but I can ensure your future is not defined by my mistake. It's yours, without any strings attached, no expectations, no demands. Only the hope that your talent, which I so foolishly tried to suppress, can finally flourish. Elara stared at the folder, then at Thorne. The anger, though still present, was beginning to recede, replaced by a stunned, disbelieving silence. She looked into his eyes, searching for the arrogant professor she remembered, but saw instead a man broken by his own guilt, his remorse, palpable, raw. The genuine pain etched on his face, the humility in his posture, was undeniable. It was not the calculated move of a man trying to save his reputation, but the desperate offering of a soul seeking redemption. A single tear, different from the angry ones before, traced a path down her cheek. It wasn't for her lost years, but for the unexpected, fragile humanity she now witnessed. Her breath hitched. The words, when they came, were barely a whisper, a tentative, shaky sound that carried the weight of years of unspoken hurt. Thank you, she managed, her voice thick with emotion. It wasn't to thank you for the offers, not yet, but for the stark, devastating truth he had finally laid bare. It was the first, fragile step, not towards forgiveness, but towards a healing that had seemed impossible just moments before. The bustling coffee shop faded into insignificance. Only the two of them remained, connected by a shared, painful past and the delicate, terrifying possibility of a new, unforeseen future. Months had spun into a vibrant tapestry since that charged meeting at the coffee shop. In Elara Vance's newly rented art studio, light poured in through tall windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air and the rich, earthy scent of oil paint. Elara, a splash of ultramarine across her cheek, stood before a canvas, lost in the rhythmic sweep of her brush. It was a large, abstract piece, a swirling vortex of color and light that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. This space, a haven of creative energy, was a direct result of Professor Thorne's quiet, steadfast support, the grants he'd discreetly steered her towards, the mentorship connections he'd facilitated. Yet, as her hand moved, confident and free, she knew the true engine was her own unwavering spirit. The bitterness, once a constant shadow, had receded, replaced by a focused, undeniable passion. This isn't just a studio, she thought, a faint smile playing on her lips. It's a second chance, a canvas not just for paint, but for a life truly lived, on my own terms. She had worked tirelessly, poured every ounce of her resurrected hope into her art, proving not just to Thorne, but to herself, that her talent had only been dormant, never truly extinguished. Meanwhile, in Professor Alistair Thorne's university office, the sterile gleam had softened. The polished mahogany desk still held stacks of academic papers, but now, nestled among them, was a beautifully produced catalog. Its cover, a vibrant reproduction of Elara's work, bore the title, Elara Vance, A Resilient Palette. Thorne ran a thumb over the glossy page, a profound sense of pride mixing with a humbling gratitude. He continued to teach, his lectures now imbued with a newfound depth, a quiet fervor for fostering genuine talent. He spoke of ethical mentorship, of the sacred trust between educator and student, his words resonating with an authenticity that had been missing before. His anonymous novels, The Ivory Tower, and its successors, still sold briskly, earning him accolades and a comfortable fortune. But their triumph felt hollow compared to the tangible, vibrant success he saw in Elara's catalog. His true legacy, he realized, wasn't bound within the pages of his own celebrated fiction, but woven into the rekindled dreams of a student he had once almost destroyed. This was the work of a lifetime, a quiet, profound atonement that filled the once empty spaces within him. A year after their initial fraught meeting, Alistair Thorne and Elara Vance sat at a small, sun-drenched table in the same bustling coffee shop. The tension that had once filled the air between them was gone, replaced by an easy, comfortable rhythm. Steam curled from their mugs as they spoke, not of past injustices, but of current exhibitions, academic trends, and the quiet joys of a life rebuilt. "Your piece at the University Gallery was truly magnificent, Elara," Thorne said, a genuine warmth in his voice. "The way you captured the city's pulse, it was breathtaking." Elara smiled, a radiant, unburdened smile. "Thank you, Professor. It's funny, I found myself thinking of some of your lectures on urban landscapes while I was working on it. Even the ones I thought I hated back then." A shared laugh filled the space between them, a testament to the bridge they had painstakingly built. The old university library card, no longer a weapon or a burden, now rested tucked safely in Elara's wallet, a silent, personal reminder of how far they had both come, not just as individuals, but as an unlikely pair bound by a shared transformative history. Their connection was a quiet, earned companionship, a rare and precious thing. In a hushed university faculty meeting, Professor Thorne presented a new initiative for student mentorship, his voice clear and resonant, his eyes alight with a genuine passion that had been absent for years. He spoke of fostering creativity, of providing scaffolding for nascent talent, of the profound responsibility educators held. Dr. Evelyn Reed, seated among her colleagues, observed him closely. She had noticed the change in Alistair over the past year, a newfound lightness in his eyes, a deeper engagement in his work that went beyond intellectual pursuit. He carried himself with a quiet confidence, free from the subtle arrogance that had once defined him. Evelyn didn't know the specifics of his transformation, the painful confession or the journey of reconciliation, but she saw the profound effect it had wrought. She offered a small, knowing smile, understanding instinctively that Alistair had found a deeper truth, a more meaningful purpose than any academic accolade could provide. His ripple effect of personal redemption was quietly, powerfully transforming the very institution he served. Late in the evening, Professor Thorne stood by the window of his apartment, gazing out at the city lights that twinkled like scattered diamonds. The path he had chosen, the terrifying leap into honesty, had initially been fraught with fear and the potential for public humiliation. Yet, in embracing that vulnerability, he had found a profound, liberating peace. His success as a novelist, once a source of hollow triumph, now felt genuinely earned, not just for the words on the page, but because he had finally faced the unwritten, messy human story of his own life. The connection to Elara, forged in the crucible of his confession and her courageous forgiveness, was a bond unlike any other. It was a testament to vulnerability, to shared humanity, and to the immense power of acknowledging one's mistakes. His heart, no longer a gilded cage, felt full, vibrant, and deeply grateful. The absence of the library card on his desk was not a forgetting, but a sign that its lesson had been fully absorbed, its purpose beautifully fulfilled. Back in her art studio, Elara Vance buzzed with energy, preparing for a new, even larger exhibition. Canvases leaned against walls, some complete, some still raw with potential. Her brother Leo watched her, a proud smile on his face. "This new series, Elara," he began. "It's incredible. So much strength, so much light." Elara paused, brush in hand, and met his gaze. "The hardships, they were real, Leo. They shaped me. But they don't define me anymore. They're just part of the story, part of the texture of the art." Her confidence was a tangible thing, radiating from her, a beacon for anyone who had ever felt knocked down. Her art, once a quiet, solitary defiance, now spoke with a clear, resonant voice. It told a story of resilience, of the beauty found in overcoming adversity, and the profound truth that a lost dream could be, not merely recovered, but reimagined into something even more powerful. The University Art Gallery hummed with conversation and admiration. Elara Vance's exhibition opening was a triumph, a vibrant testament to her undeniable talent. Professor Thorne mingled respectfully, a proud mentor figure, observing the joyous celebration of Elara's work. Elara, radiant in a sapphire blue dress, moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations. She paused to introduce Thorne to Leo, who, after an initial wary glance, offered a firm handshake and a sincere smile, seeing the genuine respect in the professor's eyes. Dr. Evelyn Reed, catching Thorne's eye across the room, offered a quiet, knowing nod, a silent acknowledgement of the beautiful outcome. Tucked subtly in a corner of Elara's studio space, away from the main gallery, was a small, elegantly framed display. Within it, brittle with age but now imbued with triumphant significance, rested the library card. It was a silent reminder for Elara of the turning point, the unexpected catalyst that had led to this extraordinary shared future. Later that evening, back in his quiet office, Professor Thorne looked first at the rows of his own published novels, then at a framed photo from Elara's exhibition, a vivid shot of her standing proudly before her art. He understood now. His greatest achievement was not any book, not any academic honor, but the restoration of a life he had almost ruined. The profound satisfaction he felt was not the fleeting ego boost of literary acclaim, but the deep, abiding peace of integrity and connection. His heart, once a lonely, calculating chamber, was now full, overflowing with a wisdom earned through humility. He no longer sought external validation, for he had found the true measure of success, not in what he acquired, but in what he had helped to heal. The story of Alistair Thorne and Elara Vance is a powerful reminder that our past mistakes, however deeply buried, carry echoes that demand to be heard. It is a testament to the idea that redemption is not a destination, but a courageous journey of humility and honesty. Their tale showcases the incredible resilience of the human spirit, the way a lost dream can be rekindled, and how kindness, even when born from guilt, can blossom into something profoundly beautiful. It highlights that everyone deserves a second chance, and that true healing often begins when we dare to face the truth, not just for ourselves, but for those we have impacted. If this story of honesty, resilience, and second chances touched your heart, please let us know in the comments below. What past mistake would you bravely confront if given the chance? Don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who needs a dose of inspiration, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel for more real-life dramas that will move you, empower you, and remind you of the extraordinary stories hidden within ordinary lives.